I thank a wide-ranging debate, and I thank the variety of noble lords who spoke. I think that actually there's been some clarity. It might not be clarity that I am happy with, but I do think that we've heard the noble Lord Earl Russell said that his aspiration really is a nicotine-free generation, not just tobacco-free. We've had some confusion about the conflation between tobacco and nicotine. The bill, at least, makes a distinction between those things. It's quite possible that the noble lady, the minister, and every other lord who wanted to get rid of that distinction wants to challenge the nature of the very core of the bill. But let me assure you, the bill makes that distinction. If that's not true, then it would be interesting to hear what's happened there. But also, medical scientific discussion on this makes the distinction very clearly and endlessly, particularly, by the way, oncologists, people who work with people who have developed cancers from smoking, are very enthusiastically promoting nicotine products. And as I understood it, and was assured in second reading at least by the government, and noticed this in other communications, we were told to not be fearful that vaping was a target of prohibition from this bill. But the more the conversation goes on, the more that it's treated similarly, the same, then it's the direction of travel. And I still would argue that when one says the evidence isn't in as to whether something is helpful, is not a scientific way of approaching something, because the evidence isn't in on a wide range of things that are happening in the world. It's the evidence on which you base evidence-based policies, not the lack of it. I thought that just in relation to the discussion on young people, and it was we ended up in a discussion about whether children are the subject of who we're protecting from a variety of the amendments that were discussed, through to 20 and 30-somethings in a nightclub who shouldn't be let near a vending machine with vapes in it. And my point was actually not that they would be recreationally vaping because they'd be having a good time by recreationally vaping, and that therefore it was very dangerous. Although I have to say that having a good time in a nightclub is not, as yet, I don't think, illegal, but actually having a drink and actually having a cigarette outside at a nightclub is, as yet, I mean, it might well be by the end of this bill, illegal. But the point about the vaping was that very often young people having a good time and so on would have a social cigarette, and that actually the vaping machine, the vending machine, might encourage them to do something less harmful. That was my point, rather than that I was trying to get them all vaping, forcing them to vape or what have you. But the conflation with between children and young adults, I do think does need to be sorted out. And I think in that sense, although I didn't I'm sure I didn't do remotely as good a job as the noble Lord Parkinson would have done in moving Amendment 16, I do think that we need to be clear that actually voting in elections is not a technical matter. It's philosophically about saying that somebody is an autonomous adult, and therefore we have a conflict of what we consider children and adults when it comes to health. I'll just finish up by saying I'm genuinely, totally disappointed about the attitude to mental health provision and vending machines. I mean, many mental health charities are concerned about this. The age-gating issue isn't an issue in mental health hospitals. This idea that, you're going to have hordes of children wandering around accessing vapes from a vending machine, it just seems cruel and inhumane, and I don't understand why that exception wouldn't be made. And it is true that mental health charities and families groups have suggested that just having the odd vending machine in a hospital where people are restricted from leaving would be helpful, and I think it would be kind and compassionate. I beg to withdraw.
Thank you. Is it your Lordship's pleasure that the amendment be withdrawn? The amendment is by leave withdrawn. Amendment